Phil Bennett. How many years? 40? How many years were you a college football coach?
44.
44 years. And our guy that we go to get some of the football knowledge in the film and watching the game, and he was texting me back and forth throughout the day on Saturday. Let's start with, and there's a lot of games. I want to get to a few other ones around the country, but let's start with, hey, I almost watching Iowa State, Iowa, Phil, is like watching grass grow. But it was almost like you watch that game and you're sore watching that game. That was a slobberknocker.
Smokey, every year it is a defensive clinic. They have guys. I was better on offense. Iowa State had some playmakers, but I'm telling you, having played in that game, being involved in it, that's a huge game. And I'm telling you, for a defensive coach, that's a fun game to watch. Phil Parker at Iowa and the Iowa State coordinator, Heathcock, both of them great coaches. And for me, it's a fun game to watch. But there's a lot of hitting going on.
How do you balance Iowa's you had some offenses that could score points for you. The challenge was they scored too fast, so you had to constantly be out of the field.
Yeah, right.
Iowa, it feels like the reverse problem with that, Phil. How would you describe that unique difference in that you almost need the defense to score points so that you can win a football game?
Well, one of the things, if you noticed in that game, not a whole lot of turnovers. So the defense really, you would think the defense and the kicking game would create more opportunities than it did. It was everything was a grind. I know this. If you notice, they didn't have to expand the camera when they were in formations. Everything was bunched up, and people were getting their ass knocked off.
Hell of a game. You were texting me during one of the early games, which was 17th ranked SMU, jumped out to the big lead, had a crazy play early, had the punt return that was an explosive play, got a turnover. There's something that's not fitting on the Baylor defense, and is it talent or is it reading and being aggressive enough?
This is the second time that I watched Baylor with great interest. Obviously, against Auburn, I thought that schematically, I thought Auburn did a really good job with a power read. Of course, the quarterback rushed for 135, 37 yards. This was a little bit different. SMU, I thought Baylor struggled early getting their fits. And when I say fits, the linebackers fitting off the defensive line. And I thought that SMU schematically and physically was getting after them a little bit. Now, obviously, the big catches were huge, but in that game, I think the thing that I took away from it, both teams really struggled fitting the football and playing the deep ball.
It seems like Baylor's going to have Sawyer Robertson throw them to a lot of wins this year offensively, which he seems he's more than capable of doing. But what a performance from him on Saturday. What did you make of just his kind of X factor, and ultimately what a win that ended up being, whereas you can kind of predict what we would be talking about if they were 0-2 and had just lost in Dallas and looked like they might get embarrassed for a second there on Saturday. But instead, it's a huge win for them.
Craig, I thought it was a game, just like you're saying, that they kept their will, they kept their poise, then they kept digging, they kept fighting, they'd give up a play, they'd make a play. And when you have a guy like Sawyer, you're never out of it. You look last night with the Buffalo-Baltimore game. You have Josh Allen, you're never out of it. Now, you got to have some help there, and I thought it was as I told a friend of mine that coaches at SMU, I said, I know you don't want to hear this, but it was a great fan game. It was a great game to watch as a fan because you could sense it that Baylor was never out of it, even though they got behind a couple of times. I'm telling you, though, the play of the game was the safety. I think it's number 38. His interception in the end zone flipped the whole game.
By the way, I'm glad you brought that up. I have a note here. Remember when in 21 Baylor lost running backs and David Wetzel suggested, hey, you need to check on Abram Smith. He played that position in high school, and he, of course, had a monster year. Wetzel is the one who also mentioned this kid about they need to give him a look. And look what happened. He made a big play for Baylor in that game and is getting a lot of time to play. Now,
let me tell you something. He plays very smart. He's very physical. He had a couple of open field tackles that were very impressive. I felt at that point in the game, Baylor couldn't afford for them to score. They just couldn't. And he made that play. He had great coverage. He reminded me of my boy from Plano, Mr. Brents. That's who he reminds me of. Plays smart, and he plays well.
He played at New Braunfels with the Unicorns. He's a redshirt sophomore, Jacob running one. I'm glad you brought him up.
Yeah, David Wetzel knows football.
Yes, he does.
And I'm telling you, that's a good take. And he's a good guy. You watch him in the backfield back there. He manages things. I like that.
Coach, I remember asking you at the beginning of the year what you thought about Mississippi State and your friend Jeff Lebby, and you weren't super. Nobody was high on Mississippi State. I mean, I think they were kind of renowned as the kind of logical number 16 pick in the SEC, really. But what an atmosphere that was on Saturday night. Yeah. What a win that ended up being for them on Saturday night. Just take us through your kind of thought process watching that one and what the biggest win of Jeff Lebby's head coaching career so far, certainly, right?
You have to start with the quarterback from Baylor, Chapin. Yep. Really, they got started, and for some reason, Arizona State has struggled with tempo offenses. If you remember last year's, I think the bowl game, the playoff bowl game in Atlanta, Texas came back and won on a deep ball. They have trouble getting their calls, getting reset, and that's exactly what happened. They fought their way back in the game, and Jeff and them did a great job. Started off, stunned them, and then Arizona State worked their way back. And at the end of the game, I mean, you could tell the corner and the safety on that play, there was complete disarray. And that's what tempo did to them. And unfortunately, that's how their season ended last year. So a huge win for Jeff. I still think they got some issues of they did a great job on the goal line stand that kept Arizona State to kick a field goal. And I think they're doing some things better defensively. They've got to get better, and they know it. But it was a huge win. No
question about it. There was that blown coverage then on that touchdown?
No, and I say this again, it was almost a replica of last year's Peach Bowl with Texas.
Yeah,
it looked like they're thinking that the offense has to wait on them because they were slow getting lined up. Obviously, they don't practice it or see it enough, and it was both. The corner and the safety were flat-footed. If you see the corner, and when the safety inverted, he didn't do anything. He stayed outside drifting, and when they ran the switch route, it was uncovered. I mean, it was a 58-yard gift. I mean, it was absolutely inexcusable in games like that.
I don't really have like a question here, but that goal line stand Mississippi State had made me think of two things. Arizona State, no matter what good running backs they had, really missed Cam Scattaboo in that role of just being like unstoppable on the goal line. So they didn't have him this time around. But also, is that like kind of the difference that even Mississippi State's not one of the higher recruiting rankings teams, but those SEC teams just have D linemen that are built for moments like that, no matter where you stand in the standings? Do you think that had anything to do with just this talent of an SEC defensive line coming into play?
Craig, I coached in that league, and I'm glad you sort of brought that up. I think there's talent. It's a great league, most talented league there is. But sometimes I think that's overblown about the offensive line, defensive line of a team. David Randall said, "Hey, I had the dogs to do it at LSU." I told your dad the story. Nick Saban one time called me, wanted me to come down there. He goes, "Hey, I know all that stuff you're facing that we don't see over here is fixing to come here. So these schemes, we got to learn to play these schemes." I think they're a great league, but I also think schematically one team has advantage over the other. And I do believe this, Greg. I think that Mississippi State in that game was vastly improved on defense.
One of the things Aranda once said to me about the SEC is you just let them go. You let them run instinctively to whatever they could do athletically, that you didn't have to. You had to do more scheme in the Big 12. Does that make sense?
No doubt. But you know what happens? I mean, that's why Nick and those guys did not want to play Art Browse. I mean, Art can run a play and rush for 200 yards in a game and maybe not block your best player the whole game. I mean, there's something. I mean, we were the most, between Randy Clements and Art. I mean, schematically, we could do things. I knew when I was at SMU, we used to play the dickens out of them. They could attack you in ways you've never dreamed. One of the things that I really thought Baylor did Saturday, really good, Jake did, the receivers were over-splitting and getting wide splits like we used to do, and SMU kept pressing them. And and Baylor was beating them on the slants that became crucial. So yeah, I think coaching and schematics are a big part of the game. Now, like I told you, back in the day, SEC was some people call, but it was a power league, and that's what people when Dave was there, everybody there. You didn't have the no huddles and the things that we were seeing with West Virginia, Oklahoma State rolling at that time, OU with Baker, as y'all were talking about earlier. So it was just different things.
What do you think's going on at Oklahoma State right now, as far as just kind of where things stand? I mean, I know there's ebbs and flows to careers, and not every year's 10 wins plus and winning championships and all that, but it just feels like they've hit a low in the Gundy era. How would you advise Oklahoma State fans to proceed, and also just kind of what do you make of where that program seems to sit right now? 3 years ago, they're playing in back-to-back Big 12 title games. Last year was obviously a disaster, and this year started off that way. What do you think?
Craig, I think first of all, and I think that Gundy will tell you, he didn't embrace the portal. It was, you can be stubborn, but you better evaluate where you're at. I think I thought they had a really good staff. I thought a lot of good coaches got let go. They hired a defensive coordinator that was at Florida, got run off when Mullins was there, had been in the NFL, has never been really great. I think he's a good coach. I'm not sure he's a coordinator, but he hadn't been great in the college game. And you switch everything except the head coach and the strength coach. I don't know their talent level. Obviously, to give up 69 points and only score 3, there's a big divide there. So I'm not qualified to actually. I don't know enough what's going on. I've always thought Mike Gundy did a very good job, but I'm not sure they're working with the same type of players that they're accustomed to there.
And Oregon and Dan Lanning are obviously very good, so I do need to give them credit as well. They look like they're one of the better teams in the country.
Absolutely. We all sit on here. We've all got an opinion. It's easy to be critical, but it was a game that none of us. I didn't expect that. I thought that Oklahoma State might defend them better than they did, but it's they've been on a slide, and it might be continuing.
Phil, as a defensive mind, can you try to explain? OU's offense last year was a mess. They couldn't do much. Jackson Arnold's going to be playing against them in a couple of weeks with Auburn. But when you watch John Mateer, the quarterback who's like the magic man for them, what do you see, and how difficult is it to maybe try to at least contain him?
I was listening to, I believe it was Craig talking about the comparison with Baker. Very similar. I mean, very similar. And when I say that, I mean, the guy, it's just how he carries himself, his poise. You can see his expectability is high. His teammates respond to him when he makes the play. I mean, they ran the quarterback counter. I think it was third, and he actually, Michigan played it well, and hell, he drug them for 3 yards. And he just plays with that enthusiasm. I tell you, the thing that stuck out to me in that game, though, David, was OU's defense. I mean, that except for the long play that they ended up missing a fit and safety missed the tackle,
Right.
they played fast, they played hard, they played assignment, and they were impressive. Now, as far as offensively, I played Arbuckle when he was at Western Kentucky. He's a young guy. He's got that system, and it's a good system. It's a tempo with a quarterback run. It combines things. I think that when he went there, he told Venables, he said, I'm going to run this thing. I'm going to do it my way, and this is the way, I know with Jeff, I know with the other coordinator, Seth, Venables was very involved in what they wanted to do. They weren't quite as good on defense. So I think he's probably relaxing, letting this guy run it. And I think this quarterback is a much better player than they've had. And it's obvious, too, they've gotten better receivers. Number 5 is really a player.
That cutback Michigan made, you're right. The safety was there. He took the wrong angle, right?
Yes,
And the guy's gone. Yeah.
It was, I tell you, it was a fun game to watch. That was and Michigan, got back in the game, and Michigan's defense is good also. Wink's done a really good job with their defense.
Coach, shot in the dark. I mean, a lot of people. I know you don't necessarily know everybody. Did you ever have much contact or come across Alex Golish at all?
I know Alex,
okay.
Yeah,
I was wondering, they're off to an incredible start. Obviously, got Miami coming up this weekend, so it actually could get better. But yeah, what was kind of the backstory there, and what do you think of him as a coach?
I think number one, I'm going to applaud their administration. They're building a new stadium. Are y'all aware of that?
Yes.
Yeah, it's on campus. Alex has done a great job along with the athletic director, who I think left recently, and to build that stadium. He's sold on what they're doing in Tampa. They've done a great job recruiting. He's got a really good staff, and they've evaluated really well. I watched them last year, and I thought to myself, I watched the first game against Boise. That was no joke. They beat Boise. During the game against Florida, I never thought they would, when Florida stopped them, or actually when they missed the field goal and they got the ball back, Florida couldn't get a first down. I said, this game's not over. Then, of course, they had the famous spitting incident that gave them 15 yards. Next play, they get 30, and game was over. So he's done a really good job.
That kid that got hit with the unsportsmanlike penalty was on Baylor's roster up until he hit the portal and went to Florida. Because I think Dave, the defensive coordinator who's now at Florida, who was at Baylor,
Ron Roberts,
not Dave, but Ron Roberts. But that Brendan Bett was on the Baylor roster and transferred to Florida.
Hey, what do you want me to say? You know my thoughts on that.
Yeah. What would you ever?
A bitch, isn't it?
Yeah. Did you ever have? What was the worst thing a player under you as an assistant or head coach ever did that just, other than missing an assignment, that you just couldn't get over?
One time, and I'm not going to tell you where it was. I had a player chest bump the umpire. And I'm just telling you, you wouldn't have believed who it was in a million years. And the most uncharacteristic thing I've ever seen. And it cost us the game.
Just like this one did. Just like
this did.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
yeah, just like it
Yes,
did.
sir. Yes, sir.
Phil Bennett with us on 365 Sports. One thing that I wanted to get to, you did say this to me about one more going back to Baylor, is that it seemed like, and this is not so much in your words, that they were unsound on their run fits. You brought that up a little bit earlier in the show. What do you mean by that?
Well, there were some runs that SMU was running. Everybody gets their run gains by numbers and angle. How many people you have in the box? How many were removed? SMU was getting good numbers to run the ball on, and they were matching up with Baylor's front, and Baylor, you saw quite a few 4 to 8 yard runs.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's where I applaud both safeties, 38 and the other safety. They did some really good one-on-one tackling. I will tell you this, though, David, I thought as the game went on, if Dave was calling it, he started giving some run stunts that I think really, I think I might have told you, might have answered some questions of what he needed to do. He started some stop calls that really put some pressure on SMU.
I saw the box score with Army's win against K-State, and K-State does seem to be a little bit out of sorts. 82 plays to 43, 70 rushing attempts to 18. Time of possession, 41 minutes. And Army, remember, they were just beaten a week before that. Yeah, by Tarleton State. That's just Kansas State looks like they're sick somehow. And what a team to have to play when you're not feeling really good about yourself.
I cannot give you a worse scenario from the time they went to Ireland and lost a close game, barely won the game against North Dakota. And then, I don't know if you saw, but the play of the game was a option pass. They ran the option, stalk, and go. And I mean, wide open. And I don't think Kansas State had 280 yards offense, something like that.
No, it was.
And it's just right now. There's a lot of frustration. They're defensively, they're not playing real good, and it's a lot of frustration both sides of the ball. And he's got his hands full to get that thing back on track.
I was not rooting against Kansas State, but I did feel like there was very much a ball don't lie moment when they didn't give they had the reversal of the call there at the end as far as that safety Madison. Yeah. I felt like that should have been Army ball, and it's pretty much game over, and K-State got a new life, and it just felt like that game ended the way it was supposed to based on the way that it had gone to that point. But that safety, Colin Madison, he had one hell of, you talk about some just beautiful turnover forcing hits, and just, man, that kid was unbelievable.
Yeah, it was that was a big play. The thing you love about service academies, I mean, they play for the right reason, for what they do with school-wise, to be a part of college athletics. I mean, they're super impressive. And Monken has done an unbelievable job at Army. I mean, really, they're prepared every week. That was a huge win for them.